Welcome to the 2021 Massachusetts Poetry Festival. I'm MP Carver, Festival Director, and I'm thrilled you're here with us. This year, we come together from locations near and far, but despite the distances between us, we remain connected as a community of poets and enthusiasts. Over the next few days, you'll hear some of the finest examples of contemporary poetry. You'll be able to attend workshops, performances, panels, readings, and open mics. You can visit our online premiere of the Akashic Art Gallery, listen to the Improbable Places audio tour, explore the virtual small press fair, and more. We also have multidisciplinary events for you to enjoy, such as poetry and dance, poetry and music, and even poetry and yoga, to name a few. I'm here in the festival's home, in my hometown of Salem, Massachusetts, but we're joined by poets and attendees from across the Commonwealth, the nation, and even the world. Thank you for being here with us, and enjoy the festival. Hi, I'm MP Carver, Festival Director for Mass Poetry. Mass Poetry would like to start this evening by acknowledging that the festival's home in Salem, Massachusetts, stands on the land of the Nomkeg Band of the Massachusetts tribe, and we recognize the violence and genocide inflicted on the indigenous people of this area. Thank you so much for joining us at the opening night of the 2021 Massachusetts Poetry Festival. I'm very happy to open this festival with three amazing poets from our greater poetry community and the winners of the first poem contest with guest judge Dara Wire. This year's winners are Emily Cooper of Peabody, Massachusetts, Samn Stockwell of Barre, Vermont, and Samantha DeFlitch of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Emily Cooper is a Midwest expat, volunteer farmer, and board member at Newhall Fields Community Farm, a Rotarian and a community activist who enjoys bringing people together. She is currently a working author, artist, and musician. In 2019, she published her first book, a selection of poems entitled The Heart is a House, and she's now working on a second book of poems and a fantasy fiction novel. She lives in Peabody, Massachusetts with her husband Evan and their dogs Wendy and Hank. You can find her writing in her home office, dubbed Walden Puddle, eating ice cream, or rallying behind nonprofit Culture House to create a free-to-enter public space for community gatherings, play, creativity, and more in downtown Peabody. In all, she works to uplift her community through conversation and programs around poetry and the arts, such as food justice, kindness, and the common good. The poem she is currently obsessed with is When Death Comes by Mary Oliver. Samn Stockwell has published in Agni, Plowshares, and The New Yorker, among others. Her two books, Theater of Animals and Recital, won the National Poetry Series USA and the Editor's Prize at Elixir, respectively. Recent poems are in On the Seawall and Sugar House Review, and are forthcoming in Plume, among others. Samantha DeFlitch, who we'll hear from first, is the author of Confluence by Broadstone Books in 2021. She is the Associate Director of the Connors Writers Center at the University of New Hampshire, where she completed her MFA. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in Colorado Review, the Missouri Review, and Appalachian Review, among others. She lives in New Hampshire with her corgi dog, Moose. Welcome, Samantha.
I am a parking chair, closed beneath winter's sun. I am John across the street, snow thrower blaring in this cold snap, unrestrained. I am restrained, though, tightly wrapped around myself. I am the knit pearl stitch. I am waking only to sleep. I am Forbes at Fifth and pork, corn, and potatoes. I am my grandmother, long time deep whirling through the family lines. I am made myself small and quick to fit between generations. I am starving myself again. I am made of 37 parking chairs. I saw them on the road to Oakmont. I am disturbance in the way in which one's body weight or shape is experienced. I am pork, corn, and potatoes. I am knit pearl. I am a bad body, but I could be good. I am awaiting my miracle. I am made of keeping it tight, made of imagining my brother tornado tracking across the Ozarks. I am very not him. I am putting me in the driveway of a young Pittsburgh man. I am going to make me a casserole just to watch me rehome it in the trash. I am scraping the filled up can to the curb at midnight. It is garbage night, and dark snow pals keep watch from our cleared sidewalk. I am tilting my own jaw up toward the sharp wind and stars and the archer who rises lightly on the far western horizon. I could be my brother out there, a vast, perhaps, rushing. I, opening.
Thank you for this opportunity. I am Samn Stockwell, reading The Transmigration of Souls in the Donut Shop. It's a surreal world where many extraordinary things happen, but also many ordinary things. The Transmigration of Souls in the Donut Shop. The baker is making a Mobius strip of lemon cream. It darts through the crowd. The ballooning heart of the construction worker is being sawed in two by the manager. I have to say something now about the woman waiting impatiently by the cash register. The houseflies lining the corona of her hair are trained by her. She locks them in the bathroom at night. The construction worker drops. Like that, a soul gets batted from its chair and joins the high-flung ceiling, waiting. I was snatching notes from the piano to play the blues. I had a handful of minor keys. Which one will start the car? I dread getting back in my car, except for Ann Nelson. She says I should have that second donut. She is an ideologue of my best interest. My parents, their stiff outlines smudged in the back seat along with the other dead, have less to say. That was never a problem when they were alive. Perhaps they shouted themselves hoarse. Does living always define excess? The little boy in the back is mostly mute. I think of fidgeting with his car seat, not that it could matter. He wonders where I'm going. I'm sure it's the same places. So many of the monuments in Hope Cemetery give me pleasure, but the best is of Dick and Chickie dancing on a tiled floor into the infinite distance, or the angel pressing her head into her hands, as I often do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily Cooper. I live in Peabody, Massachusetts, and I am beyond honored by the opportunity to read a poem of mine for you this evening. So thank you so much, Mass Poetry. This chance means the world to me. And thank you so much for putting this wonderful festival together. I know words are such a balm for all of us, especially in this challenging age. So we see you, and we're grateful for you and all the work you're doing to spread words. Without further ado, here is my poem entitled Upon Quitting My Job. By the time that I turned 33, I'd forgotten how to be myself outside the model mold of womanhood that I'd been shown. The proper person archetype began to make me ill. The standard was a crowbar, prying fingers from the cloud, nostrils from the soil, and my relations to my race. Soon I craved a silence so desperate and distinct. When it arrived, I fast became a glutton. A shipwreck on the seafloor. So much nothing, pouring in through every aperture, filling up my lungs. Guzzling the silent blue, I was unable to suffer enough of it. Such peace washing over me, caressing. So soft, my exile, like a pale blue sky. All I wanted was to be enough, to be heard, not seen, not manipulated or touched. No more disrobed with raking eyes, or underestimated and underutilized because I smiled too much, too often. If a soul can metamorphosize, I will explode to see it done. like some star or wildflower on fire with fragrance. A waving tree line, a northbound wind, succeeding in its one expected role. It should be so simple. I have decided that the world can be inlaid in me and not the other way around. And while rebuilding, guilt and sunlight, power, dreams and dirt, I will cry such pools. Wash bowls full for little birds and spangled fish whose tails brush the perimeter of their universe as my fingers test mine. Frightened I may be, but the air in my lungs is a winter stream. The blood in my veins is a fire spout. The voice in my throat a song. The ground below will offer freedom as only it can be found, blooming once every 7 years, if at all. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for our headline reading at the 2021 Massachusetts Poetry Festival. My name is Crystal Valentine. I'm the festival manager, and it's my absolute honor to introduce to you the talented and incredibly brilliant Khadijah Queen. Khadijah Queen is the author of 5 books of poetry, including I'm So Fine, a list of famous men and what I had on, which was a finalist for the National Poetry Series and received praise in O Magazine, The New Yorker, Los Angeles Review, and elsewhere. Earlier poetry collections include Conduit, Black Peculiar, and Fearful Beloved. Her most recent collection, Anodyne, received praise from the Paris Review Daily, in which they said, every poem in Anodyne reminds me of what a poem can do, what a poem should do, how it gets to the details of personhood by attending so gloriously to the details of the world. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Khadijah Queen.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Thank you, MP. Thank you to the poets who have just shared their work with us. And thank you everyone for being here this evening. I'm going to share, well, first let me acknowledge that in the present moment, the land I occupy is in the traditional territory of the following indigenous nations: the Missouri, Oto, Kansa, Osage, Shawnee, and Delaware people. I'm happy to be here with you and joining you from the road as I make my way from Colorado to a new job at Virginia Tech. Thank you for including me in this event. I'll read 4 poems from my latest book, Anodyne, poems about the everyday, focused on home and family, nature, and the world. And again, Crystal, thank you for that wonderful intro. The rule of opulence. Bamboo shoots on my grandmother's side path grow denser every year. They're harvested for nuisance. Breezes peel blush and white petals from her magnolia, lacing unruly roots in the spring grass. For 9 decades, she has seen every season stretch out of shape. This past Connecticut winter, slow to relinquish cold. As a girl, she herded slow turkeys on her Aunt Nettie's farm, 50 acres in a Maryland county that didn't plumb until mid-century, plucking chickens and pheasants from pre-dawn into the late night, scratching dough for neighbors, relatives, stopping by for biscuits, and the view from my window changes. It's Mother's Day, and I'd always disbelieved permanence. Newness, a habit, change, an addiction. But the difficulty of staying put lies not in the discipline of upkeep, as when my uncle chainsaws hurricane-felled birches, blocking the downsloped driveway, not in the inconvenience of well water slowing showers and night flushes, not in yellow jackets colonizing the basement, nuzzling into a hole so small only a faint buzz announces their invasion when violin solos on vinyl end, but in the opulence of acres surrounding a tough house, twice repaired from fires, a kitchen drawer that hasn't opened properly in 30 years, marked danger. Nothing more permanent than the cracked flagstone path to the door, that uneven earth shifting. The next one is X. It's actually in this really cool comic book anthology put out by Wave Blue World. So it's been illustrated by a comic book artist. X. In the Blombos cave, an etching. A cave of swimmers, a lake of sand dunes, and every rock a green savanna across the first continent. 100 years, 100,000 collapsed. Gesture learned, the mark of wanting to make marks in the surrounding objects to say what? X. What once marked the body. Too much pressed into bones, ancient value feels hopeful. The blackest millennia so vindicated. An ochre block and herd of cattle sweep across impossible pastoral, a history in skin, in blood, in everything alive, a disturbance. Antediluvian. Where were you when the truth disappeared, or when the truth battered us and we pretended fear fell from the ripped pillow of our sky, instead of rising up from the one clear place of us? Where were you when strong men told us to die and blasted us into nothing? Were you downtown to witness the smooth mirage stagnate in skyscraper shade and neon glower? Did you hop a bus and clutch a cold center rail, the sweat of your palm making you slip as if at sea? Were you at sea, in memory, gathered into lyric, your body pretending any era was a safe one? 6 persimmons ripen unconsumed. Mayfly wings flash their iridescence in the dark. Nothing works. By swallowing alarm, you scrapped what you knew near plaza fountains, ultra anonymous. Now, an arrowhead sharpens the blood under our flesh. Low to the ground, a sea of tamarisks. You claim millennia led to the false obelisks, led to what severs the head of connection in the time of least. But we only ask that you not kill us. Double life. Last night, I split a bottle plus a glass of white, a clear Cali Sauv that first woke me, then put me to sleep. In between bites of poblano soup and spicy slaw on bootleg street tacos, we ran off each random white man who thought he could eat in our silence, with our crass laughter and endless sentences about oppression in work life and bloodstreams, ours and others. And who did they think could escape now? Collision of fear and brazenness clapping together in historical play across the moving planet. Erica says a woman named Chocoletta saved her from boss-led persecution, and I say or think something like her mother had vision, and the power in a Black woman's name saves us all. Hungover and overworked this morning, I get my tax bill. Doubled my income last year, so owe double too. I wish I could pull a Thoreau, but I'm only 41.8% white. If only I could just be chased off a bar stool at the Hornet on Broadway after eating a plate of fake nachos and drinking a warm Pilsner. Instead, I fear the end of the chase, ending in blood, mine or someone I love, and I love us all, and so many of my white friends know how to help ease my way out of wreck. I show up at the university in bold New professor, leather and tweed, elbow patched, and afraid I'll learn to pontificate too much by default, or tell too much truth, or be much too Black to be trusted. I notice one of my white male students leaves the room every time we talk about race. My therapist tells me I should put things like that in the container I made up for what I can't control, and I do. This job isn't writing at all, and I'm burning too fast, afraid to combust and afraid I won't. For dessert, we split peach cobbler topped with vanilla ice cream. I don't eat dairy, so Erica spooned it up and I basked in the warm sugar and fruit and surprise of caramel crisscrossed on the just right crust, remembering my mama's mama and the smell of nutmeg and cinnamon in her kitchen, fresh peaches simmering in syrup in an old pot on a gas stove, her fingers pinching quick dough, remembering her permanent frown as a pair of mirrored crescents between her eyes, the map of lines on her forehead, and as we speak, I am inheriting the furrows earned rightfully by crones. If you do it quickly, Grandma said, you can heal burns without leaving a scar. Smooth your injured skin, then peel and cut a potato in two and hold each rinsed half to the heated flay until the potato turns black. Repeat until it looks like nothing ever happened. Uncle Sugar Pie raised her and her sisters in Michigan because white men lynched her father in Alabama and threatened her uncle with death if he didn't leave too. They took my great-grandfather's store and land and home, and Uncle Sugar Pie was a nice man, but rocked on his front porch chair with a shotgun if he saw any white man in the neighborhood trying to sell any damn thing. What else can we do for protection? I think about that in the ecstasy of a sweet peach, an irony of death and theft on indigenous land, and the violence of language in every space I enter, and I think I'm losing everything but my mind. I certainly am paying for the trouble, and we split all that liquor, so now our whispers mean to get loud. Yes, now you have to listen or move the hell out of the way. Thank you very much.
I'm so happy to introduce Victoria Chang. The author of 5 outstanding books of poetry, Victoria has been recognized with a Guggenheim Fellowship, a Catherine Min McDowell Fellowship, a Sustainable Arts Foundation Fellowship, a Poetry Society of America Alice Faye DeCastagnola Award, a Pushcart, a Lannan Residency Fellowship, among others. She is a contributing editor at Coppernickel, Tupelo Quarterly, and On the Seawall, as well as the program chair of Antioch University's Low Residency MFA program. Her most recent book of poems, Obit, out from Copper Canyon Press in 2020, is a remarkable exploration of grief, form, and language. Obit was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award and long listed for both a National Book Award and a PEN Volcker Award. In addition to her poetry, she has published a children's book, Is Mommy, and a middle grade verse novel, Love, Love. She lives in Los Angeles with her family and her wiener dogs, Mustard and Ketchup. Please join me in welcoming Victoria Chang.
Hi, thank you so much. I hope everyone can hear me okay. My internet has been not that great lately, so I hope that it won't be too problematic during our time together here. Thank you so much to Mass Poetry for inviting me to this reading. I look kind of grainy, don't I? Thank you to MP and anyone else who had a hand in putting this massive endeavor together. I know what it means to do this, and thank you so much, Khadijah. That was such a beautiful reading. I love your poems so much, and so honored to be able to read with you. I'm just gonna start with a poem that's not mine. I just like to kind of read a poem that but from a book that maybe I've been reading, and so this one is from 100 Poems to Break Your Heart edited by Ed Hirsch. It's got a neat kind of beautiful cover. And it's just a poem by Cesar Vallejo. And it's really short, so I'll just start with this. It's called Black Stone, Lying on a White Stone. I will die in Paris on a rainy day. On some day I can already remember. I will die in Paris and I don't step aside. Perhaps on a Thursday, as today is Thursday in autumn. It will be a Thursday because today, Thursday, setting down these lines, I've put my upper arm bones on wrong. And never so much as today have I found myself with all the road ahead of me, alone. Cesar Vallejo is dead. Everyone beat him, although he never does anything to them. They beat him hard with a stick and hard also with a rope. These are the witnesses, the Thursdays, and the bones of my arms, the solitude, and the rain, and the roads. So I will read some poems first from my book, Obit, and then I'll just, I forgot to start my clock. Let me start my clock, and then we'll see how my time goes. And the only thing that you might find useful is that my mother passed away from pulmonary fibrosis in 2015. And that is when your lungs gradually harden and you suffocate to death. And my dad had a stroke maybe about 13 years ago. So he suffers from aphasia or language loss. He's a ghost that travels through all of my poems and my life too. And these are shaped like small obituaries, if you could see them. This one's called Memory. Memory died August 3rd, 2015. The death was not sudden, but slowly over a decade. I wonder if when people die, they hear a bell, or if they taste something sweet, or if they feel a knife cutting them in half, dragging through the flesh like sheep cake. The caretaker who witnessed my mother's death quit. She holds the memory and images, and now they are gone. For the rest of her life, the memories are hers. She said my mother couldn't breathe, then took her last breath 20 seconds later. The way I have imagined a kiss with many men I have never kissed. My memory of my mother's death can't be a memory, but is an imagination. Each time the wind blows, leaves unfurl a little differently. This one is called Gate. My father's gate died on March 14, 2011, once erect, light, flat-footed, magnificent. Now his gate shuffles like sandpaper. Once my father erected a basketball net, mounted it onto a wooden pole from the lumber yard to save money. With each shot, the pole moved a little, invisible to the eye, until I had to shoot from the side of the driveway. Now I avoid semicolons. I look for statues whose eyes don't move with me, the kind of people who stand in place and lights can be strung on. The problem is, my father's brain won't stop walking, and my dead mother is everywhere. And speaking of my wiener dogs, unfortunately, I forgot to put them in the garage, and so you'll be potentially hearing Mustard, who's the barker, barking at leaves or something or another. This one is called My Mother's Teeth. My mother's teeth died twice, once in 1965, all pulled out from gum disease, once again on August 3rd, 2015. The fake teeth sit in a box in the garage. When she died, I touched them, smelled them, thought I heard a whimper. I shoved the teeth into my mouth, but having 2 sets of teeth only made me hungrier. When my mother died, I saw myself in the mirror, her words around my mouth like powder from a donut. Her last words were in English. She asked for a Sprite. I wonder whether her last thought was in Chinese. I wonder what her last thought was. I used to think that a dead person's words die with them. Now I know that they scatter, looking for meaning to attach to like a scent. My mother used to collect orange blossoms in a small, shallow bowl. I passed the tree each spring. I always knew that grief was something I could smell, but I didn't know that it's not actually a noun, but a verb, that it moves. So I wrote about 70 of these over a very short period of time, 2 weeks or so, and then one day I just stopped and I started writing these other various formal poems like sonnets and sestinas and villanelles, just to see if I could write still, you know, that feeling. And then I those were all terrible, so I discarded them, and I ended up with a few tankas, which are Japanese syllabic poems that are 31 syllables and 57577. So I placed them in this manuscript at varying intervals, and I'll just read. I'll read 2 of these, and they come in little sets like that. So they speak sort of somewhat antiphonally with each other, and I'll just read 2. They don't have titles. I tell my children that hope is like a blue skirt. It can twirl and twirl, that men like to open it, take it apart, and wound it. I tell my children that sometimes I too can hope, that sometimes nothing moves but my love for someone and the light from the dead star. And I always say they may not sound like much. They're really hard to write because you have to have the syllabics fit, and they seldom do. And I'll read a few more obits, and then I'll maybe move to some poems in the middle of the book. This one is called Grief. Grief as I knew it died many times. It died trying to reunite with other lesser deaths. Each morning I lay out my children's clothing to cover their grief. The grief remains, but is changed by what it is covered with. A picture of oblivion is not the same as oblivion. My grief is not the same as my pain. My mother was a mathematician, so I tried to calculate my grief. My father was an engineer, so I tried to build a box around my grief along with a small wooden bed that grief could lie down on. The text kept interrupting my grief, forcing me to speak about nothing. If you cut out a rectangle of a perfectly blue sky, no clouds, no wind, no birds, frame it with a blue frame, place it face up on the floor of an empty museum with an open atrium to the sky, that is grief. This one is called Hindsight. Hindsight never existed until August 3rd, 2015. Someone had painted over hindsight, but if you paint over something, it still exists. On some nights, while the children brush their teeth, I hide under the blankets and jump out when they return. I try to make myself as flat as possible, try not to move as if I have died. Every time I run out of air, every time I realize I don't want to die, every time I realize death doesn't care what I want. Sometimes a child screams, but most of the time they see my shape or my foot and know I am alive. I wish I had known exactly when my mother would die, as in an appointment. Then I would have moved my feelings earlier. I wouldn't have painted over her mouth. I wouldn't have painted over my heart. Now that it's over, I know the heart doesn't really shatter, but I also can no longer feel it. And this one is called The Clock. And I explained this at the beginning. I don't know why I always feel like I need to explain this to you, but I was in a car listening to NPR, and a scientist was on the radio who had Alzheimer's, and he sounded coherent and he made a lot of sense, but obviously he was unable to figure out how to draw a clock, and that obviously drove him insane. But I loved listening to him talking about trying to work this through in the mind of someone who struggled with Alzheimer's. And my dad is in this poem as well. And he, when he was more healthy and more coherent, we used to have to take him into doctors' offices a lot, and they'd always ask him all kinds of questions like, "Oh, when's your birthday?" or "How old are you?" And obviously he had no idea, but the thing that always made me smile was they would give him the clock test, which is to actually have him read a clock, which then it occurred to me how incredibly complicated the clock is. So long introduction. It's called The Clock. The clock died on June 24th, 2009, and it was untimely. How many times my father has failed the clock test? Once I heard a scientist with Alzheimer's on the radio trying to figure out why he could no longer draw a clock. It had to do with a superposition of 3 types. The hours represented by 1 to 12, the minutes where 1 no longer represents 1 but 5, and a 2 now represents 10, and the second hand that measures 1 to 60. I sat at the stoplight and thought of the clock, its perfect circle and its superpositions, all the layers of complication on a plane of thought, yet the healthy read the clock in one single instant without a second thought. I think about my father and his lack of first thoughts, how every thought is a second or third or fourth thought, unable to locate the first most important thought. I wonder about the man on the radio and how far his brain has degenerated since, marvel at how far our brains allow language to wander without looking back, but knowing where the pier is. If you unfold an origami swan and flatten the paper, is the paper sad because it has seen the shape of the swan? Or does it aspire toward flatness, a life without creases? My father is the paper. He remembers the swan, but can't name it. He no longer knows the paper swan represents an animal swan. His brain is the water the animal swan once swam in, holds everything. But when thawed, all the fish disappear. Most of the words we say have something to do with fish. And when they're gone, they're gone. Just check my time here. Okay, I like to stick to the time that I was given. So, I'm going to read just maybe 2 more poems from the middle of this book, and then a couple more after that, and then I think I should be okay. So there's a middle section in this book that is a little hard to read. There's no punctuation, and they're titled, they're all together, and they're a bunch of 14-line poems and 1 long poem. So I'll just read 2 sections from it. The title of the poem is I'm a Miner. The Light Burns Blue from Sylvia Plath's The Candlestick. And I'm not exactly sure what these poems are really doing, but it's okay. In the last parking lot in the last city, there are trees that look like nerve endings, scalps of leaves, thousands of birds in threes. Somewhere, the last people have stopped to place white rocks over dried volcano. Beth loves Jim, and someone loves Matt. At the last party, the light lanced onto the last baby's face, its body still slumping in ignorance. Once while teaching a child how to draw a person, I learned we are made only of circles and rectangles. I now know a body must loosen before it tightens. I now know a body can loosen and tighten with many men. I now know Earth is a whole, not a sphere, meant to be filled with bodies, not with thinking. And here's 1 more from that middle section. If darkness could be combed, there would be hundreds of knots, morning and night cross on the concrete. A snail flattened into the shape of a screen. A fish has broken from the water. Its rod of a body flickers on the dirt. Walkers cross over its eye. Somewhere a child tries to wake up by thrashing its body. Somewhere bugs grip thugs of dirt and the worms look more beautiful dead. A bee catches on a stroller's wheel and crackles as if its heart can be broken. If we push the wheel forward, we ignore death. If we walk backwards, we repeat death. So we stand still and try to outlast death. So I'll read 3 more poems. I'll read one more obit, which is the penultimate poem in the book, or the second to last poem, and it is based on a writing prompt that Derek Sheffield from terrain.org, which is a literary journal, asked me to write for his Dear America epistolary series. And the only thing that might be useful to know is that this poem references the Marjorie Stoneman shooting in Florida. America died on February 14, 2018, and my dead mother doesn't know. Since her death, America has died a series of small deaths, each one less precise than the next. My tears are now shaped like hooks, but my heart is damp still. If it is lucky, it is in the middle of its beats. The unlucky dead children hold telegrams they must hand to a woman at a desk. The woman will collect their belongings in shadows. My dead mother asks each of these children if they know me, have seen me, how tall my children are now. They will tell her that they once lived in Florida, not California. She will see the child with a hole in his head. She will blow the dreams out of the hole like dust. I used to think death was a kind of anesthesia. Now I imagine long lines, my mother taking in all the children. I imagine her touching their hair, how she might tickle their knees to make them laugh. The dead hold the other half of our ticket. The dead are an image of wind. And when they comb their hair, our trees rustle. So I'll read a couple of new poems. They're really tiny, so I only read a few. And I've been writing a lot of tiny poems lately, just a kind of a continuation of the tankas. And these are also all in syllabics. And these titles are based on W.S. Merwin's titles. And this one is called Foghorn. Sometimes the language we have is inadequate. On rainy days, people leave yellow boots on the porch. The egret takes off its yellow feet and steals the boots. And the intention of all the restrictions and constraints was to separate my poems from subject matter after writing very sort of grief specific poems for so long. So these poems are really about nothing. This one's called The Notes, and I think that will be my last poem. I stay in bed and listen for any music. Today is cheerful. It has overshot itself and is tomorrow. I'm left behind, waiting for the birds to return. They've moved on. I now know that being birdless doesn't hurt. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. What an absolutely stunning reading. So everyone, please, I hope that you'll put your questions in chat. We'll try and grab them as we go through. But to start us off, somebody actually said in chat something that I thought really captured something that was true of both of your work. Carolyn Cushing said, so beautiful out of such horror. Which I think is true of both of your words. Would you each say a little bit about why you have turned to poetry to address some of these more intense themes in your work?
Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
You go.
Well, I think I didn't really have a choice. I could have written some essays about it, but most of mine were written like right after the 2016 election. So everybody was writing their essays about it. And to me, it felt like something that poetry could distill really succinctly and accurately. So I think that's why poems for me.
Yeah. You know, I thought a lot about this because I was just talking to someone today during an interview, and you know, I think so many poets and writers' parents pass away, and they have all sorts of grief, but why did I feel the necessity to write these these poems about my mother's passing? And I don't know, I've thought a lot about that. Like, why can other people sort of just, it seems like it doesn't phase them in the ways that it's phased me, or why do I need to write them down? And I think I kind of landed on the fact that we all grieve differently, and we all process grief differently. And for me, writing is the way that I sort of navigate through life. And so grief is another aspect of life. And I also think that you know, my parents have been sick for so long, and it just becomes a part of my life. So writing about it seemed like a natural extension. And then I was also thinking that being an immigrant's child, you know, when my mother died, my whole history died. You know, things that I can never ask her, you know, what a saying is in Chinese anymore. There's no more Mandarin flying around the house. We've lost our mutual language that was only specific to us. And then there are all these questions I have about my history that I cannot ask anyone anymore. So I think at that kind of grief, it wasn't just about my mother's death. It felt like a whole part of me was wiped out. So I think that's sort of why I turned to writing, to kind of process all of that stuff in one space.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and another thing that has interested me about both of your work, and Victoria, during even when you were introducing poems, you talked a lot about form. And Khadijah, your books also have a lot of forms, and Anodyne especially had a lot of seemingly very experimental work. Would you each talk a little bit about why you've chosen some of the forms that you've written in for these books?
Yeah, I try to do something different for every book. I do tend to like the prose poem form, but I wanted to, like, I said I was going to write regular poems. This is what I was telling people. And I wanted to see if I could still write regular poems, because I tend to try to make art out of them. So that was one reason why I was trying different forms. Like, how can I write a regular poem for me? Which means both a shape and some expansion. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like I needed both rules and freedom. So that's my idea around the forms in Anodyne.
Yeah. I mean, I've been quoting the poet Terence Hayes a lot about form, which is he loves writing in form as well, and was saying how for him, writing in form it feels like a bird flying in a cage. And I always think about that. And that's kind of what Khadijah was saying, both shape and expansion. And I think that, for certain material, form can be very powerful. It can be surprisingly freeing. And I was just in a reading recently where someone quoted Robert Creeley. I couldn't find this quote, so it may not be Robert Creeley. So, but it was strong feelings require strong containers. And I don't know, it's just kind of, those things have sort of stuck with me. So I think I'm very attracted to form as a way to put some, as I've been saying in some readings, it's like some of those bowling guardrails, you know, it's to prevent the gutter, but also to give you enough freedom to go down and swerve around and have a chance to hit those bowling pins. Sorry, I don't even bowl. I don't know why I was thinking about that.
Thanks. And actually, Victoria, speaking about one of the particular forms that you wrote in, the tanka, somebody in the audience, Judson Evans, was wondering what brings you to tanka. Judson mentioned that it seems like women have dominated the ancient as well as the modern tanka tradition in Japanese culture, and was wondering if you had read a lot of translation of a lot of Japanese tanka writers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to remember why I landed on the tanka. I think the haiku is too short for me. I feel like I needed a couple more syllables or an extra line or two. Harriet Mullen wrote a book of tankas a while ago. I want to say there's the tumbleweed. Khadijah, do you remember the name? The urban tumbleweed?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that right?
urban tumbleweed. Yeah,
Urban tumbleweed. Yeah, and I think I remembered that, or I thought, oh, I maybe would like to try these. And I really enjoyed those. And thinking back on Mullen was just how different those poems were from some of her other poems. And that strikes me as always really bold and brave. And I love doing that myself. And so I just sort of landed on the takas because I think that was sort of what I was familiar with. And in my new syllabic poems, I've gone to all sorts of different syllabics way beyond the tanka. So it's fun to write tankas, and it actually gets me writing. So if I have to count syllables, it makes it easier. Otherwise, I might just, I feel like I stare away a lot and end up with nothing on paper.
Thank you. And this one is for you both. Would you mind saying a little bit more about what you tell young poets and students about writing poetry?
This is sort of related to what Victoria just said about the tanka, because I found myself having a hard time writing during the pandemic. And I tend more toward the image than the syllabic. And so I picked the haiku. But I needed like more space. So I was writing series haiku. And it was just like a low stakes way of reapproaching writing without any kind of project in mind, and just practicing observation. And I was also reading a lot of Zuhitsu, Kamiko Han, and in particular, and Chinyi Chen. So I think that reading is the number one thing I say to young writers. And the second thing would be to just try things and don't be afraid to mess up, and just keep trying, keep reading a lot.
Yeah, reading. It sounds like a cliche, but Khadijah's right. I think the more you read, the more you realize how much amazing writing and there is, but also how elastic the brain and the soul is. And I think that it can be very inspirational to read other people's writing. And yeah, I mean, even while I'm writing, sometimes I just keep books around, like the obit poems. I had Virginia Woolf's The Waves as a word dictionary, if that makes sense. So I just open it, and if like a can was in there, and I try to use the word can in my poem. And so I think for me, and what I tell people all the time, is that to have fun writing, because it's supposed to be play and enjoyable. And it's when the stakes, could you use the word, like, low stakes kind of thing. I think the stakes can sometimes feel too high when you're trying to create this sort of high art, thing. But if you just think of it as playing, it can be a lot more enjoyable.
Actually, thinking about the importance of reading, I think that leads me into the next obvious question is, which poets are you reading right now? And also, which poets have most influenced your work?
I mean, I always say my poetry parents are Lucille Clifton and Fernando Pessoa. Those are the first poets I encountered where I wanted to read everything that they had written. And this is like in the year 2000 when I was starting to write seriously. So I would say recently I haven't been reading as much. I've been reading nonfiction. So I just read T. Bui's, I think it's called The Best We Can Do. It's a graphic memoir. But you have to read everything. And read everything that the writer wrote if you like them. That's my answer. Read everything.
Yeah. I have about 100 books lying around that I've I'm working my way through, but the one actually literally in front of me is this book, and it's the selected works of Audre Lorde, and it's so good. The essays in the front are so beautiful and so powerful, and it gets me thinking a lot about silence and sort of the problems of silence, and I also love some of the poems I've been reading in here. At another reading this week, I read the poem A Litany for Survival, which is so beautiful. I love it, this poem so much. And the last three lines are, so it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. I just think that's so powerful. And then just all these other books. I'm rereading some Rilke and rereading some Rilke because I haven't read all of Rilke. And for this letters correspondence class that I'm taking with the poet Mark Wunderlich, and my poets, I don't know. I think I mean, we all have family trees, you know, we talk about this a lot, and trying to figure out your family tree in poetry is always a moving target. And I would say the living poet that I feel most influenced by is probably Joy Graham. I do love the poets that have sort of been more sort of innovative. So I really love Gertrude Stein and Woolf, of course, Virginia Woolf, and I love the imagistic poets. To go back to what Khadijah was talking about, how the image is very central to your work, like the Elizabeth Bishops of the world. And yeah, so I read everything, and I love reading everything. So I'm always very, my family tree is always sort of morphing, and sometimes I kick out the uncle and bring in a new one, you know. So I love reading so much, and feel like I'm always trying to catch up because there's so much to read.
I love the poem a day poems. I think Noor Hindi had one that was just out about Palestine. That was amazing. So yeah, like stay every day reading something. Something new. You never know who you'll find. Yep.
Thanks. And Owen had a question. Both of you have had such full, rich careers so far. What do you feel like you've learned over the course of your careers, and what advice would you have for people who are trying to make a life writing poetry?
I think being patient with yourself and being clear about what you want to make, and to enjoy yourself, to go back to something that Victoria said, like find what excites you about writing poetry and lean into that. And value integrity over career kind of deals, you know what I mean? Like it's not supposed to be smarmy. It's supposed to be because you want to contribute to the field and not because you want to be a famous writer. So that's what I would offer.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. And I think that knowing that it's going to be a hard path, no matter who you are and where you are in your journey, is gives you a degree of release and freedom. I mean, I don't know a single writer that thinks writing is easy, and I certainly don't know a single writer that says the sort of more professional aspects of writing have been easy. You know, whether you shot out with your first book and won 1 billion prizes, or you're, you know, 60 or 80, or, you know, and haven't really published a poem yet. I mean, everybody's on a different journey, and regardless of that journey, the professional aspects can really eat away and take its toll. And so I always try and remember and ask myself and other people to remember why you started writing and what you like about writing. And once you start going back to that place, you remember that all the other things don't matter. But it does require that patience that Khadijah was saying. And I just encourage people to be kind and generous with each other, because, you know, poets, you know, we struggle, you know, we're sensitive, and we have deep, very deep emotions. And I think that sometimes it can be easy to be cruel to each other. And I think I would choose generosity any day, but I think being a writer in the community is very important to me. And so Yeah, I mean, it's just, just keep reading and loving it because it's not easy.
Thank you so much. And Khadijah, can you say what it was that struck you about Pessoa?
Well, superficially, we have the same birthday, June 13th. The second thing is that he wrote in heteronyms. So he created all these different personae and wrote in different styles for each one. And so I was very intrigued by that multiplicity very early on. And they were just kind of like these little puzzles. There's one like the clockwork train that we call the heart is one of them, autopsychography. And I was just like enamored with how he was able to turn things around with such simple language. And I think that's sort of similar to Lucille Clifton with her like really precise clarity and like this undeniable precision to her poems in terms of both meaning and image. And with Pessoa, it was more like he could invert meaning with just a single like turn. And so I was interested in that. And it didn't feel clever. It felt accurate. So I was interested in that.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks. And so both of your books have come out in the last year. And obviously, this has been an interesting time for all of us in the last year. We're here celebrating the first virtual poetry festival, and so glad to be together in community. But there's also a lot of difficulty along the way. Can you each talk a little bit about what it has been like to promote your books at this time and how the experience has been?
I'm gonna let you go first, Victoria.
I'm not a big I never really like to promote my books, if that makes sense. So I really just, I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about it ahead of time. But when the pandemic came around, I didn't really think about it either because I don't really like promoting in my books or reading my poems either. I'd rather sit here and read other people's poems for 20 minutes than my own. And so I guess I just haven't put a lot of thought to it. But I do think that it's just a different medium. So it's been really wonderful to be able to see people from New Zealand, for example, here. Welcome. And I think that I'm a bit of an optimist, even though my poems never feel that way. I try and see the positive in everything. So it's been so nice to meet people all over the world, and I feel like there's still an intimacy. Like I feel like I can still feel everyone in here, even though I'm not with you. Like I can feel your presence, and I hope you can feel my presence too. And so I think it's just different. And so I've enjoyed it. But I think I've enjoyed less so working from home on Zoom, because like today was like an 8-hour Zoom day. I was just complaining about, I have one more Zoom meeting after this, but I think this stuff is great. Like I really enjoy taking a little bit of time out of my day and hanging out with Khadijah and MP and reading poems and hearing poems. And so to me, it's been a joy and in many different ways, and great fortune to be able to share my work and hear other people's work that I wouldn't normally have been able to.
Yeah, I would like to echo that. And I think I would also rather talk about other people. Like I've gone to so many things that I wouldn't have been able to go to virtually, and especially like stuff with like Dion Brand or Eden Robinson, like just poets that live in far-flung places, who I wouldn't be able to access otherwise. And I think that has been a positive. Yeah, promotion stuff, Tin House has done a wonderful job of setting up things so that I didn't have to think about it as much. I've also been asked to like visit classrooms and things like that, and that's been wonderful to engage with students who've read the book or read other books of mine. I even had like a FaceTime with some classes or recorded some things for folks. So it's always beautiful to have that connection with people who care about poetry and who are reading your books. It's always a humbling and privileged experience to know that people are reading something that you made, you know, in your meditative moments or your sadnesses or whatever. So I appreciate everything, even though, you know, it's not the same. It ain't the same. It ain't the same as being in person and being able to hug people or see somebody in person you haven't seen in years. But we made do, and there are plenty of positives.
Thank you both for such uplifting thoughts. I think we'll end with this question. With your books out in the world and making a big splash, if you're willing to share, what are your next projects or what are you working on now, if you know?
Yeah, I have a bunch of things that I am working on. I don't know how much I can say, but fiction, essays, travel narratives. Not really working on any poems right now, though. Maybe just those little haiku to keep me connected, but definitely working on several books right now.
Oh, me. I'm going to show you something because I just got it. But this is coming out in October, and it looks really pretty. And
Nice.
it's Dear Memory, a book of epistolary hybrid sort of things with some art inside by Milkweed. So that's not really what I'm working on, but it's work in that there's a book coming out, and that's work, of course. And then I finished a book of short poems that I read you two from. And otherwise, I'm not really writing, which is great, to be honest. I enjoy not writing because it can be so obsessive for me. But occasionally I will have a project or something that someone asks me. So I'm currently doing this really cool project where I'm writing a short poem for the Poetry Society of America and Blue Bottle Coffee. So that is what I was working on this morning. And so that's about all I'm doing. And just, teaching and hanging out with students and that kind of stuff, the usual.
Well, thank you both so much for a fantastic reading and a wonderful Q&A. We're so glad to have you here with us and to kick off our festival. For everybody else, we've got a couple more short videos for you, and I can't wait to see you over the rest of the weekend. And have a wonderful night. Thank you all for coming.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much. Bye.
I'm Daniel Johnson, Mass Poetry's Executive Director. At Mass Poetry, we bring poetry into the lives of more than 3,500 people, young and old, across Massachusetts each year. From hosting the Massachusetts Poetry Festival to placing poets in residence in partner schools, we're able to offer our innovative poetry programming thanks to our incredible community of supporters. At this year's festival, we'll reach more than 600 middle and high school students, giving them the chance to work alongside our acclaimed teaching artists. Since the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, we've expanded our community programs by offering them virtually, and we're now poised to become an arts partner in residence in Grub Street's Center for Creative Writing in Boston Seaport in 2021. Please consider donating to Mass Poetry today. Your gift will help us continue building an inclusive and diverse community that lifts all voices.
Thank you to our presenters and supporters, and most of all, our public audience for joining us. There will be no festival without you. Having you here means that we're connecting as a community of poets, and despite the challenges posed by the pandemic, Mass Poetry is still able to grow and thrive amongst this community.